Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
È giunto il momento di risollevarsi. Together, we can make a difference.
To lives and communities everywhere.
Нам нужна устойчивая продовольственная система.
لأن مصيرنا واحد.
Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
È giunto il momento di risollevarsi. Together, we can make a difference.
To lives and communities everywhere.
Нам нужна устойчивая продовольственная система.
لأن مصيرنا واحد.
Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
È giunto il momento di risollevarsi. Together, we can make a difference.
To lives and communities everywhere.
Нам нужна устойчивая продовольственная система.
لأن مصيرنا واحد.
Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
È giunto il momento di risollevarsi. Together, we can make a difference.
To lives and communities everywhere.
Нам нужна устойчивая продовольственная система.
لأن مصيرنا واحد.
Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
È giunto il momento di risollevarsi. Together, we can make a difference.
To lives and communities everywhere.
Нам нужна устойчивая продовольственная система.
لأن مصيرنا واحد.
Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
È giunto il momento di risollevarsi. Together, we can make a difference.
To lives and communities everywhere.
Нам нужна устойчивая продовольственная система.
لأن مصيرنا واحد.
Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
È giunto il momento di risollevarsi. Together, we can make a difference.
To lives and communities everywhere.
Нам нужна устойчивая продовольственная система.
لأن مصيرنا واحد.
Somos las raíces que nutren.
每一位粮食英雄都发挥着重要作用。
Nous devons nourrir le monde.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Ghana. My name is John Agri. I will be your host and moderator. Greetings across all over the world. We are happy to have you here in joining us for the FAO World Food Program. It is a privilege to have all of you here. We are live across our YouTube channel where other participants are also engaging with us. We'll make sure to have time respected for everyone, especially our speakers who are also busy in their daily activities, and also make it very interactive. Now, Before we start, we'll have a little bit of ground rules and administrative rules. If you are not speaking, we will kindly request that you put your speaker off or mute. We will also request all participants to make very good use of the chat box in asking their questions. We will have two segments where we will have both the panelist discussion as well as the participants engagement where they can ask the panelists some questions. It is a privilege to have all of you here, and I'm happy to interact with all of you. Thank you very much. And I am John Agri, your moderator for today's World Food Day. Thank you. All right, people. Now, before we start, let me share the screen and then we get right down to business today. For today's webinar, we will start now and there will be welcome and introductions by me. And from there, we are going to have two pre-recorded speeches, one from the former US Vice President, Agor, who is the founder and chairman of the Climate Reality Project, as well as the host event organizers, that is FAO, the Director General. We will also share his recorded message for the world on today's World Food Day. From there, we should have our panel discussions, and all panelists will also have the chance to talk about their organization and what each of them is doing individually. Then we have the participants' engagements and our closing remarks. Right. So for our speakers today, we have making food systems more resilient and robust. We have Amy Gillian. She is the branch manager, the African Climate Reality Project. We have Esther Wanza. She is the energy business mentor for Energy for Impact. She also represents UNMGCY, Regional Youth Focal Point for Africa, in support of the United Nations Food Systems Summit, which comes up next year, 2021. And a very, very good friend from Friends for Leadership, a member, Dr. Khalid Onva. We also have Marie-Claire Graf Yungo Focal Point 2020. She's also the Children and Youth Constituency to UNFCCC. And right from Africa, we have Oluwatonsin Ogunsola, the CEO of 10+ Agro Consults Limited. Thank you very much for these distinguished speakers and experts in their field of work, their hobbies, who have decided today to share with you and I on World Food Day. So we will dive into a little bit of their background. I'll talk briefly on their background, and then we will have the opening speeches by our respected excellencies. Then we start the panel discussion. Thank you very much. I am John Agri, your moderator for today. Now we have Dr. Hali. He is a strategy advisor for sustainability and digital transformation. And he is a member of Friends for Leadership Network and a board member of the European Technology Chamber. He is also a member of the T20 process within the G20 presidency and participant in the United Nations Summit on Internet Governance. Dr. Khalid is also an engineer and economist, so his expertise in that area will surely bear today in our program. It is a privilege to have you here, Dr. Khalid. We recognize you and your presence. Thank you very much for coming. Our next panelist is Amy Gillian. She is the branch manager for African Climate Reality Project. Amy started her career as a researcher at the Center for the Study of Governance Innovation at the University of Pretoria. And since then, she's had the privilege of working with Amnesty International and most recently, the African branch of the Climate Reality Project. Later in the discussion, she's going to share with the world, especially with the African continent, what the African Climate Reality Project is all about and the campaigns which are ongoing and how you could become a climate reality leader. Amy is equally passionate about environmental and social justice issues, gender equity, and the importance of climate education and literacy. And also, she believes in putting her passion for sustainable living into practice by incorporating it into as many areas of her life as possible. She follows a plant-based diet and lives on a small holding outside Joburg. Thank you, Madam Amy, for representing your organization as well as the African continent for the climate reality. We acknowledge your presence. Thank you. And to say, I'm also a climate reality leader. So I'm happy that we have representation here as well. Next on the bill is Madam Esther Wamza. She is the Energy Business Mentor for Energy for Impact and also the UNMGCY Regional Youth Focal Point for Africa in support of UNFSS. She will also tell us more what the UNMGCY does and also what exactly we are also expecting for the UNFSS, that is the United Nations Food Systems Summit 2021. She is an accomplished renewable energy professional who is passionate about climate change mitigation, women empowerment through entrepreneurship, and energy sustainability. And World Food Day, that's today, her statement to the global community is to achieve global zero hunger, we need to take advantage of technology and science to build more sustainable and resilient food systems. Inclusivity at all levels is key in creating a robust food systems. Thank you, Madam Esther, for your presence. We also have a representative, the Yungo Focal Point 2020, as well as the Children and Youth Constituency to the United Nations Framework on Convention on Climate Change. That is the UNFCCC. In the person of Marie Claire Graf, she is a Swiss youth advocate and activist, a change maker for just sustainable development and ambitious climate action through her diverse engagement in several initiatives around all dimensions of sustainability, that is on the local front, the national level, and the international space. It is a passion and aspiration to inspire and empower youth to take meaningful and impactful positive actions to create a momentum for change to preserve nature. Recently, Madame Claire was awarded the United Nations Secretary General as a Youth Climate Champion of Switzerland and appointed as champion for the United Nations Food Systems Summit. Madam Claire, with this powered recognitions, we look forward to engaging with you and also have your thoughts on today's World Food Day. Thank you for coming and thank you for your time. And to my very good friend and brother, Oluwa Tosin Ogunsola, all the way from Nigeria, who is a CEO of Templus Agro Consults Limited. He is by profession a development professional in human rights, livelihoods, health, education, leadership, climate, and entrepreneurship. Much of his engagement within the development space is centered around projects that impacts children and youth. He is also a project manager, a consultant. He has volunteered wide and passionately for a lot of international organizations. And presently, he is the Director of Impact Assessment, the Global Socio-Economic and Financial Evolution Network, the African continent. It is a privilege and honor to have you here with us, Oluwatosin Ogunsola from Nigeria. And to have the founder of Why SDGs, Madam Diana Akufo. She is an award-winning blogger and also has a background in plant and environmental biology. And she is also a Google certified digital marketer. In terms of her passion, she's an activist and an SDG advocate. She has also led impactful conversations on global citizen, COVID-19, and mental health, and a proud fellow of the Yali LLC, as well as a member of the Food and Water Foundation Ghana. She's passionate about the environment, sustainability, and quality education. Madam Diane, it is a privilege and honor to have you here to share your thoughts as well. And lastly, I am the moderator. I'm the founder and CEO of High Consult. I'm also the United Nations Youth Association Ghana Youth Minister for Food and Agriculture. And I'm honored to have been in this seat to represent you. And we thank you so much for all that you have done. Thank you so much. So, people, for us to go straight to point, I also want to acknowledge the participants both on our YouTube channel as well as on our Zoom. We appreciate your time here. So we'll go straight to the panel discussions where I will give briefly 5 minutes to each of the panelists to just have an opener on World Food Day and what their take on World Food Day has for the world. So I will begin with Madam Amy, our climate reality person here, who will also tell us what the World Food Day means to us and what it means to the African continent as well. So Madam Amy, the floor is open to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, John, for your very warm welcome. And hello to everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. Happy World Food Day to all of you. I'm really excited and honored to be part of this panel discussion. So I think from the African Climate Reality Project's perspective, World Food Day is a really important day, not only because of the extent to which we are seeing food insecurity play out in our country, but really across the continent, particularly during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. I think it's also a really important day because it allows us to take a step back and take stock of our food system as a whole and look at the current food system and whether that is really allowing us to not only have accessibility to healthy, nutritious food for all people, but whether it's also a food system that aligns with a sustainable development model, and whether it intensifies the climate crisis or whether it contributes to sustainability. And so I think World Food Day is a really important time for all of us to look at the food that we're buying, the food system in our countries across the continent, and our local farmers, and start asking ourselves, how is food grown? Who is producing it? How is it being produced? And are we supporting our local food systems? And I think equally so, in building resilience, it's really important that we take a look again at indigenous knowledge systems, practices, and ways of farming, because often these have shown to be the most environmentally friendly and often the most resilient when it comes to enduring and adapting or withstanding extreme weather events. So I think from my side, those are my first few thoughts on your question. I think the last thing just to say there is that farming from an environmentally friendly perspective, or at least using regenerative agriculture, is extremely important because soil is also regarded as one of our carbon sinks, which means it has the capacity and ability to store large amounts of carbon from the atmosphere into the soil. So we have a really important role to play in ensuring that regenerative agriculture is something that we promote right across the continent and really across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Emmy, for the opener and incredible submission on that. So it means that from your perspective, we need to take a look again at who is producing what and with which material. And most often than not, we look more at the food production in actually what actually brings the food up, that is the soil, which also can be a house or a storeroom for carbon. Thank you very much for that insightful remarks and opener. We will surely come back to speak more on your submission. So next, we will have Dr. Halley to also give his perspective on what World Food Day means to us in the global community. Thank you, Halley. Your take. You are muted.
Yeah, hello, John.
Yes.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here with you together to talk a little bit about our food system. And let me start, please, with the Friends for Leadership program, which is one international network of highly talented leaders in the area of business, in the area of academics, in the area of governments, which brings together a lot of people for a multi-stakeholder discussion. And happy to join on behalf of the Friends for Leadership program, and happy if you could also join us in the future. Well, the first question, I'm an academician, partly in the intersection between the government or the politicians and the business sector. So the first question, what we need to ask about on a global level is why do we need to change our food system? And every day you eat, you have to eat, at least if you want to stay healthy. And 7.5 billion people on the planet right now, and 10 billion people in 2050. So will you be able to continue to eat in the same way is the 1A question. And what are the current food systems limitations? 1 out of 3 people suffer from malnutrition. About 800 million suffer from hunger. So, and 2 billion people do not have sufficient access to vitamins or minerals, which are necessary for healthy growth and development. So on the other side, we do have 2 billion people overeat. We do have about 1/3 of them are obese. So this is a very paradox world, when I might say it like this way. Okay, this is not a healthy world for everybody, whether for the poor or for the rich. So anyway, there should be a balance where we need to foster about. What is the second one is our food is too rich in fat, sugar, salt, and meat, and almost everywhere on the planet. And it has an impact on our health situation, and it has also an impact on our environment, like greenhouse gas emissions. And the third thing is I want to mention is 1/3 of food is wasted. So I do think we are on the way to be like a hybrid human technology system with all the innovation and technology digitization is going on. So So it can't be that almost 1/3 of our food is wasted and is not consumed by anyone. And the fourth point, what are our limitations? Natural resources are under extreme pressure, massive pressure. Water resources are running out or running dry and becoming polluted. 1/3 almost of our soils are degraded in any way. These are big problems intensifying climate change. So what are the steps we need to do in order to change our food systems? And let me sum it up with 4 steps. The first step is production, like farming. So the solution, one solution could be, I'm not sure about if that is a solution, but one solution could be, I'm coming from the technological perspective, what we have also, when we look to sustainability, a social perspective. The technological perspective is we need something like precision farming, where technology can help us to make farming a little bit smarter. But at the same time, we need to look about social solutions to technical problems. And digitization can also cause some social problems, like massive job losses. In any way, we need to come up with either ways we have social problems and technical solutions, or we have technical problems with social solutions. The second step is in the chain of food system is processing. So it could be that we need more smart factories in order to keep balanced our food chain system. The second step is distribution networks. We need to be care about like best before dates because of the problem of food waste. So in times of intelligent computing, in times of cloud computing, industry 4.0, there should be another solution for also best before dates. And smart logistics we also need. But at the end of the day, and that's my final point, these 3 steps cannot achieve a better food system if we don't have smart people on the consumption side. All the activities we are doing with technology, smart planet, smart earth, smart farming, smart fabrics, at the end, smart energy, smart grid, at the end, we need to end up with smart people. So let's try to make the world better in also making the people smarter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, for that academic perspective. As you've said, we need to have a production systems where farming is organic, social solutions, but we also need to consider job loss because in the age of technology, we say science is taking over what human resource. And yes, the distribution, because carbon emission is also a major factor when it comes to distribution. That is either air freighting or by road. So thank you very much for that perspective. Before we come to the other panelists, I'm glad to say the pre-recorded videos of our respected excellencies are ready. So we will listen to it and then we will move on from there. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Al Gore, and I want to thank you for joining us today for 24 Hours of Reality Countdown to the Future. As all of you know, we're living through truly extraordinary times. And if you're like most people, you look at these challenges that we're facing now, the climate crisis getting worse, the COVID-19 pandemic, structural and institutional racism, the challenges to the operations of democracy. And you ask yourself, what can we do? How do we overcome these truly existential threats that are connected? And how do we build together the sustainable future and the just and fair future that we want and deserve? Well, the presentation you're about to hear and the discussion you're about to join is about these questions. Your host is an incredible climate reality leader that I personally have worked with. And through their presentation, you'll learn the science behind the climate crisis and why it is having such a devastating impact on the ecological balance of our planet. You'll also learn how the climate crisis is connected to the COVID-19 pandemic and is connected to the broader injustices and inequities, not only in the US where I'm located, but in places all around the planet. Just as important, you'll learn that we have the solutions and you'll learn how we can work together to solve these crises, starting with a green recovery and with a just transition to clean energy and the technologies that can make our world better in every way. You'll learn what you personally can do to make a difference and to help us create the future that we want and that humanity deserves. So before I hand you back to your host, I want to say one other thing. Thank you for being a part of this global conversation. The truth of our circumstances is very clear. We have to solve the climate crisis, and we have the solutions we need today. I know that we can solve the climate crisis. We have the political will. You know it's a renewable resource, but it's really because of people like you who are ready to commit the time and energy and attention and stand up and fight for a better world. Because of you, I know that we will succeed. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, the World Food Day found its origin in the birthday of FAO-UN on 16th October 1945. This year is a very special one for FAO and for the global fight against hunger and malnutrition. 75 years ago today, out of the debris of the World War II, millions lost their lives in the conflict. Millions more died of the starvation. Farming was devastated. The world needed to rebuild agriculture and to meet the most basic of the human needs. Nations come together. FAO-UN was established first. And we delivered it. FAO harnessed everything at our disposal: expertise, research, statistics, diplomacy, to help the world produce more, to feed more. In the first 25 years of FAO's existence, farmer output increased by 70%. But feeding the world was not just about more hectares and more tractors. In the second quarter century of the FAO's existence, we worked to make the green revolution greener and bluer too. We became drawing the world attention to safeguarding the oceans and the seas. We promoted the aquaculture, and we targeted and defeated and treasured animal disease. The third quarter century saw a great push for sustainability. We worked to empower smallholder farmers. We promoted a package of solutions for the global food security. We underscored that there was no such thing as an end to hunger without application of innovation, responsible investment, accessible trade of commodities, and empowering women and youth. Of the 75 years that FAO has been in existence, we have grown, nourished, and sustained the gift of our soil, the livelihoods of our people, the legacy of our planet. Today begins the next quarter century of FAO's story, a time to look back at our successes, but also and measure the distance left to travel, and more importantly, to look forward to the new era. Clearly, our work is not done yet. After diminishing steadily, and the nourishment is increasing again. Too many children are still wasted or stunted. Billions of people cannot afford a healthy diet as civilization moves on. Crucially, the next phase in our history starts amid the wreckage caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. It has laid bare the fragility of our agri-food systems, the precociousness of the agricultural labor force, the thin line that separates many families from destitution. Dear colleagues and friends, now it's a time to show ourselves worthy of the FAO's founders, who rose to the occasion 75 years ago. We have made a good start with our comprehensive COVID-19 response and recovery program. It focuses on data collection, poverty reduction programs, trade and food safety standards, and preparedness against the next zoonotic pandemics. But in the longer term, nothing less than a radical transformation of agri-food systems will be needed to bring us closer to the hunger-free world. This, for FAO, presupposes the flat, more agile, and modular structure, a relentless push for the digitalization, joining the hands across the government, academia, civil society, and the private sector, and a constant pursuit of the innovation and scientific excellence. The world is looking to us to put our actions where our words are, to be think tanker and action tanker rolled into one. Alongside our partners, we must be knowledge generators and facilitators all at once, together in the quest for the ultimate public good, a world free of poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. Tomorrow begins today. So on this World Food Day, allow me to thank and congratulate you, my colleagues and friends. Allow me also to spur you on to the even greater efforts until World Food Day comes, when we can look back and say, mission accomplished. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you very much for watching and also for listening to the message from the former US Vice President, Al Gore, and also from hearing from the FAO Director General on World Food Day. So with all ahead, we will continue with our next set of panelists. I'll move to you, Madam Esther. What is your take on the World Food Day and what it means for global sustainability?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, John, for this introduction and the opportunity to share my thoughts and my views on this great day. I'm so glad the theme for this day, the 75th anniversary for the World Food Day, is nourish, sustain, grow, nourish, sustain together. So I'm going to give my narrative. That is, I know we have a lot to talk about on this great day, about our food systems, about our lives, about our communities, and all that what has been going on about the COVID and how it has affected our food systems. And my perspective is going to be based in an African setup, where I'm the regional youth focal point, and maybe how we as youth can play a key role we can play a key role in the food systems and how to solve some of the upcoming challenges. So according to the research done, around 821 million people go to bed without food or hungry. And this has increased in this COVID-19 era, which has affected most people. And as you know, the African countries contributes to almost, more than half of this population due to some of the challenges such as the drought faced in Africa, due to the climate change effects, the conflicts in most of the countries, use of traditional technologies, skills, like that is lack of skills for most farmers, and unfavorable policies for the agricultural sector. We need, as youths, in this World Food Day, we need to look at our communities. Do we have anything to celebrate ourselves for? Have we raised our voices, our food voices enough? And besides raising the voices, what actions have we taken towards ensuring sustainable food systems? It's yet another year to face more challenges, to come up with more ideas, to solve more challenges in this food sector. So it's upon us to take up the role, to identify the challenges in our areas, in our communities, and let's share them with others from other regions. And I'm sure once one has shared his or a challenge or a problem faced in a community or his or a community, will support in that. We need a united area where we can work together towards a common goal, and that is ensuring sustainable food systems. The UN summit is coming up next year, and the Secretary General has stated this as one of the ways to come up with actions which and recommendations which can help us to have more sustainable food systems. So I call upon all the youths, let's come together, not only in Africa, but in all parts of the world. We have a great role to play in this. We don't have to wait for the Secretary General to come to us to give us our views, but we can go with one voice, with the views we have to present to the Secretary General, to the government, to the CSOs, and tell them we think this is the best way to go for a good food system. Thank you. I'll reach there. I'll make more contributions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Esther, for that insightful contribution. And it is very true that globally, world wastes more than 1 billion tons of food every year. So I do, yes, support what you have said. It is time for us to change how we produce, how we consume, and also to reduce greenhouse emissions. And on your closing remarks, which was very, very, very more of an action point, that you're saying that we need an area where we can work towards a common goal, and that common goal is no hunger. So thank you very much for your opening remarks. Surely we will come back where you will share more insights on the UNFSS 2021 with us. Thank you very much. So next we will call on our next person, Marie-Claire Graf. She will also give us her opener and then share her thoughts on what the World Food Day 2020 means to us. So Marie-Claire, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Also, thank you so much, everyone who already contributed. It's always getting harder and harder, when you're coming later, because everyone already fixed everything to say. But so, as already presented, I am coming from the climate angle, and that for me and also for the whole climate movement and the young people is so important to strengthen the impact of food, and especially the food systems on the climate, but also that the climate has such a huge impact when it comes to the food system. So our whole agriculture systems are at the brinks if the climate is going to heat. And of course, this is very concerning. And because it was already mentioned, I think by Amy and by others about the food security issue. So to strengthen this mutual correlation between food and climate is so important. And also there were different scientific studies that transforming our food system is the #1 solution to the climate crisis. But unfortunately, this fact is still very little known. And there is a lot of attention when it comes to solar panels and windmills. Of course, everything is very, very important. And I don't want to play one against the other because we need everything what is helping us to solve this climate crisis. But we have to absolutely strengthen the fact that the food system, that transforming them towards a more climate-friendly and more resilient food system is the #1 solution to the climate crisis, but also the biodiversity crisis. But also it will be supportive that we don't have other coronaviruses and other spread of diseases. So by transforming our food systems, we have so many positive effects on our health, personal health, on the planetary health, on the soil health, on the atmosphere, on literally everything. And so this is also my biggest wish for this World Food Day, that we can strengthen these connections, and that also we can really bring together many people from different angles, different sectors, different regions that we have also here today to all rally behind this fact and come all together. And I think this is wonderful what we also see here today in this event, but also in the many events happening today at the World Food Day. Yeah, everyone is coming together, and I think this is a start. And also in the lead up to the next Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change happening in November in Glasgow, the Biodiversity Convention, which might happen in May in Kunming in China, but also the Food System Summit, which will probably happen around June, July, or we don't know exactly, in New York and virtual. There are so many events going to happen, but we cannot wait for these events, but we have to start right now, and then we can come together and then we can exchange. But it's very important that we all start right now. And I think this conversation today is a great chance to collaborate and see how we move forward. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much for that insightful, loaded information. And we are happy that you said it's very critical with what you talked about, strengthening the mutual correlation between food systems. And that is very key. That means that once we transform the food systems, we gain a collective advantage over health, social well-being, as well as even mental stability. Because having a very, very progressive, productive, efficient food systems also plays a critical role on our mind. So that is also not left out. So thank you so much, Marie-Claire, for that passionate, loaded remarks from you. And okay, so before we go to our last panelist, the participants, I'll say you are not left out. Once we're done with the first round of discussion, the floor will also be opened to you for you to also have your say. And let me acknowledge a very respected personality of the house, Samni. We acknowledge your presence here. And also we acknowledge the presence of Madame Harriet from Ireland. We acknowledge you also here. Maxwell Aluko, as well as Ulrich Xinjiang, Atu. We recognize all these wonderful, and Eunice, as well as Matthew. We recognize all of you here who's made time to share your thoughts here. Now, back to the panelists. Oluwa Tosin, my brother from Nigeria, over to you, your perspective on World Food Day and what it means for the global community. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, John, for having me here. And thank you to all the panelists, speakers, and participants. on this occasion of the World Food Day. Yeah, from my own perspective and contribution to open the floor, basically, we have food, we have water, and you have energy. These three are key factors for basic life and existence on Earth for humans. So today we would focus more on food, while also would be looking at how the changing climate and COVID-19 has made its accessibility and availability a point of interest. Whereas we are also discussing about how to make it more sustainable through our food systems, and then introduction of technologies and innovations into it. Yeah, for the food, it's known that everyone depends on food for their nutrition, both human and animal. Yeah, and also for humans, it's more of a factor for their livelihoods, because really in Africa and Asia, it's known that production of food and everything related to food, that's the food valuation, it's a key resource for the livelihoods of a significant number of the population of individuals in Africa and in Asia. So that makes food a key subject for enhancing resiliency within the communities, basically in the global south. So also, when we now pick food as an identity, we now view it under the scale of the changing climate. We observe that the trends over the years has been a dwindling dynamism between the efficiency of production and the tax that has to go into raising a whole lot of innovative solutions to be able to get production to scale as it's supposed to be. As the population increases, the production also has to increase alongside to meet the nutrition balance, the accessibility to food. So this year we had issues also with COVID-19, and that also restrict access to food, basically. So it's also a wake-up call for us to be able to look for innovative ways in which we can strengthen our food systems, so that even if we have any other pandemic or whatever case it may be in the near future, we don't pray for it, but then life happens. So we should be able to maintain our food lifeline, so that we can be able to cater for everyone on Earth. Yeah, so boiling down to that, we would also looking into the environment and biodiversity. We understand the fact that every effort to make the food system sustainable, efforts to for food security, and efforts to have a resilient environment has to boil around the factors that stresses on the environment, because the environment is the key sustenance of life. Everything that is produced in terms of food, in terms of water and energy, comes directly or indirectly from the environment. So that's a key point of reference also. So for today, as the discussion goes on, we'll be weighing in thoughts on the nexus between food and climate, as we also project into the near future. So it's good to be here.
Thank you very much, my brother, for that opener. Now, before we go on, I think I'll put this question to you that just came in when you spoke about how. So there's a question here from one of the members saying, how then do we meet the nutritional balance, looking at how our food system is not strong?
Okay. Well, I'm a farmer and I grow a lot of crops. So for me, looking at food in that light, the first thing we are supposed to concentrate our effort on is the production aspect of food. Are you growing a food that is nutritious enough? Basically, you can't determine this except you are aware of the crop you are growing itself. What are the constituent elements, the nutritional components of that crop? Then are you growing it to meet that nutritional component as at when you're harvesting? So once you are able to determine that, then all other factors, including the logistics around, including logistics, the marketing, the market structure, and also it's more or less like this farm to fork approach, so that at least you can get the food at that high quality of nutritional requirements to the table of your consumer at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, Tosin, for that response. So over to you, Madam Diane Akufo. What is your take on the World Food Day?
Hi, thank you. Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I do not take this for granted. I'm so glad to be here to speak on food. So first of all, one thing that I'll say is that to me, the drive is people live in poverty and people do not have access to food. And here we are with so much food that we throw some away. The food becomes waste. So at the end of the day, we contribute a lot to what is happening in climate change. And we know that right now, the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions are about 21 to 37%, which is just coming from the food systems alone. And this is just so, mind-blowing, just looking at it from that perspective. We need to be very conscious of what we do. Someone that I personalize everything that we are doing. Let's try and personalize this food, no food waste. When we talk about no food waste, what are you doing in your home? What are you doing as an individual? Because before we can go out and say that we are trying to talk about, oh, everyone should calm down and, don't waste food, don't wait. Are you practicing it yourself? You should start with you as an individual, and then move on to the people around you. That is how we make the impact. I think most of the times we think that it's so big, it's bigger than us, and we need to bring organizations in to speak about very basic things that we can do ourselves. But at the end of the day, it is discipline and effort. We need to be conscious, and there needs to be education on how to dispose of waste, how to properly dispose of waste. It's very important. When we talk about food, people just think of the system where it begins, the production on the farm. We think about harvesting, we think about processing, we think about packaging, transportation, consumption. But that is one of the important things that we need to look at. And I think we need to be very conscious about these things. We already have science, we have frameworks, and we have policies. We need to focus on the people and the solutions. We need to focus on getting the action done. I think it's high time that the youth stand up and take part in personalizing these things and teaching their families in the rural areas in the urban areas. I mean, we all need to be collectively involved. And this is my take on the food systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Diane, for your opinion. So this question, I think I'll put it to Amy before I come back to you, Dr. Hali. So Amy, this question is for you. With respect to climate reality or climate resilience, how do we bridge these two and food systems? Because food systems is not just about food. So I think people are making that when they talk about food systems, all that pops in their head is food, but it goes beyond that. So you as an expert in the field of climate change, how do we bridge climate reality and food systems? Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for the question. I think I'd like to start by answering that question, if I may, with looking at and perhaps responding or adding thoughts to what Diane was saying. I don't know if you saw, but I was nodding my head vigorously in agreement with much of what she was saying. So I think something to consider when we're looking at the food system, not only globally, but also regionally, so across Africa, but then also within our own countries, is what is the power and the politics within our food systems. And many of our systems are currently, they are very centralized, they're corporate controlled, which means that they are highly inefficient in actually dispersing and distributing this food to people. So that I think would speak to really the resilience when we're speaking about food security issues, building social resilience around the food systems. Because actually currently at the moment, I think it was a point made earlier, but just to clarify that we are actually producing enough food. The world's farmers are producing enough food to feed 1.5 times the current global population. So there's actually enough food to feed 10 billion people. The problem is that our global food system is just highly, highly inefficient and centralized. So what we actually need then is to take a step back and rethink our global food systems, our national food systems, our regional food systems. And that's what I was saying earlier, is we need a decentralized approach to the way that food is not only produced, but also the way that food is sold. So rethinking how food is grown, where it's grown, who is growing it. And I completely agree, is that we need youth involved. We need to be upskilling our youth. And I think in South Africa, and I know from a previous event I attended a couple of weeks ago, that we're seeing this really across Africa, is that many youth right now are not involved and not interested in farming. They don't see it. They don't see the opportunities in farming. And so when I was doing my master's research, primarily the people who were farming in these communities were older women, 60 years older, 60 years plus. And what was so fascinating is that they were being retrained on something called agroecology, which is a form of regenerative agriculture. And they said, this is what we grew up with. This is our indigenous knowledge systems. This is the way that my parents told me how to farm. So when we talk about resilience and the need for this, I guess, bridge between climate reality, the reality we're facing from the climate crisis and food systems, is, I think, looking at who is producing our food, but then also how it's being produced and where it's being produced, and creating much more decentralized systems that, for instance, food could be produced on the sides of roads, outside of schools. We need everyone involved. This is not only about farmers out in the rural areas. This is about all of us producing food. And I think that's why I agreed so much with Diane, is it's on every single one of us to get involved, to grow our food, and then equally so to sort our food waste and look into ways that we can then get rid of that food waste. You know, can we compost? Can we, you know, give it to farmers in our area that could then feed it to animals? And I think just coming back to the way that food is grown is something we've forgotten, is just how powerful so many of our indigenous knowledge systems and practices are. And that these practices, which we've now called agroecology and organic agriculture, were very much embedded in parts of our systems already. And I think about embracing them and going back to many of these practices, and perhaps not all of them, but these are ones that were already working with nature. And that by rethinking our food, the way our food is produced, and working with nature rather than against nature, is a way that we build resilience. I remember when I was doing my master's research, there were a lot of studies out there that highlighted across different continents that farmers who were farming using agroecological practices, farming with nature, were in fact far more resilient and able to adapt to extreme weather events. They were able to withstand droughts, floods, and cyclone events because of the practices that they had, because they worked with biodiversity. And I think another benefit of doing that is we also encourage pollinators to come to our farms. So, you know, right behind me, there's actually, speaking of us embracing it, I have 2 beehives right behind me. And last night, my partner and I went to go save a colony from some speakers in Johannesburg. And unfortunately, they didn't stay put in our catcher hive. But I think it's really looking at the system as a whole and embracing nature, working with nature and with the people in our communities and around us. So that's my contribution. I hope it answered your question, John.
You have actually answered it brilliantly. But before I let you off, so are you saying with the agroecological practices, nature-based solution has the potential to propel us to a more greener economy or more greener future?
Absolutely. I think nature-based solutions, you know, I mean, even the United Nations in a recent brief earlier this year really identified forests, but then also nature-based solutions as a whole as absolutely essential for dealing with not only mitigating to the climate crisis, but also adapting to the climate crisis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that response. So over to you, Dr. Hallett, your question. Yes. So how then do we transform food systems to provide enough nutritious food for a growing population? How do we transform food systems to provide enough nutritious food for a growing population?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So it's a very ironical question also, when I may ask about what is the maximum of food someone can eat? If you assume a world that everybody has enough to eat, how long can you eat for that? So I mean, the positive and ironical perspective of that is there is a physical limit of what can someone eat. So you can't eat a whole day. Either it might be sometimes so that some people can do that anyway, but this is a very multidimensional approach question. There's a boundary about what humans are able to eat in the one question, and what is the minimum amount of food what someone needs to be healthy and have a great life anyway. So this is not an easy question to do that. According to some research, if the world would be only eat on a vegetarian basis, so we might be able to feed about 12 to 14 billion people right now with our actual technology. So give me a little bit broader perspective on the food system at all. I want to try to do that. You know, if you ask about the question, what are the positives of our actual food system in comparison to 100,000 years ago? So we are not able to solve the problem in the next 10 years. This is my personal view. But if you look from a system dynamics perspective, and we look not only to the next 10 years, but maybe to the next 50, 100 years, so I think there could be some solutions for that. Because the evolution of humans and the humanity at all, the whole system, is closely related and linked to the evolution of diet. And if you look to the timeline of food, I only mention one invention. About 2.5 million years ago, the discovery of the use of fire has led us to switch and to switch in a completely different food system because only of fire. And this invention or the discovery of the use of fire is a key basis for stepping into the next one. When we look to the future, unfortunately, we cannot bite on bits. So I would not say that the digital world or technology can help us to eat bits and bytes, but what technology can help us to look about what also one of the previous speakers said, is about the efficiency of the food system at all, about how we can produce and how we can use our agricultural system in order to make, like, you know, when you only measure the weather and the climate change parameters with technology, with digitization, if the farmers do exactly know when it's going to be raining or when it's going to be snowy, so maybe we can also couple that with mechanical technologies, so we can anyway build constructions and high-end technology because of securing our landscape and our soils. This is a multidimensional question. We cannot give that in a brief answer, but my hope is combining the ability of humanity in innovation, but at the same time, not only innovation on a technical basis, but also social innovation, which is a very, very crucial point if we want to feed the world in the next 15 years at all with convenient way for everybody.
All right, so then with that perspective, so I put this to you. Do we need now to focus more on digital agriculture?
I think it would be not bad. You know, the thing about data is everybody is saying data is not, sometimes people say don't trust on statistic which you do not have produced by yourself. But the thing is, it's easy to lie with statistics, but it's even easier to lie without statistics. So if you have any data, so this could be helpful, but it's not the only solution. As I said, data is helpful as a technical tool, but at the end of the day, it's only a technical tool. We need to come up also with social solutions. But yes, I believe we need the technology in order to have better. I might say another positive thing. The last thing, John, when you allow me, when we look to the food system at all, and we have two basic things: is food or hunger an absolute data or a relative data? Because I do think it's an absolute one. No single person has to suffer from hunger on Earth. But on the other side, when we look to the relative things, when we go back only 200 years ago, there have been about half of the world population, about 60% of the world population suffered from hunger. So our system and technology did also great things in order to achieve such a high level of food systems. But as it seems, it's not enough.
Thank you very much, thank you very much, Dr. Halleck, for that score. Now, my next question is to Marie-Claire, your question. Now, with also in relation to climate action, how then do the youth know that food systems, which is we are discussing now, is not only about food, but also climate change plays a very critical, important role in that. All right, so let's push this question to another. Madam Marie-Claire will be with us shortly as she works on her technical difficulties. Will any of the panelists want to give an answer to that? All right, Amy, I think your hand is up.
Sure. John, could you just rephrase the question one more time?
Okay, in relation to food systems, how do we make it more important for the youth to know that climate change plays a critical role in food system?
So thank you for the question. I think it is, just like the previous question, quite a complex one to unpack in its various layers, because especially when we're talking about the food system as a whole, there's many aspects to it, but I will highlight a few areas that I think youth could get involved. And maybe perhaps to start with the role as a consumer. I think by asking questions about where our food is being produced and how it's being produced, is it being produced in a way that farms with nature or against nature? So for instance, recently in South Africa, there have been huge issues in one of our provinces because many of our big commercial farmers are producing fruit with a lot of pesticides. And what are the ripple effects, not only on biodiversity, on the climate, but also on human health of the people who work on the farm, but then also reside in that community. And I think by asking restaurants, by asking our grocery stores, where is this food being produced? Please label our food. And that's another thing, like checking the labels on our food and asking the questions about where that food is coming from, how it's being produced. I, for instance, have bought a pack of nuts before, and in looking at the food label, noticed that these cashew nuts came from 3 different countries on 3 different continents. And I think it's, as youth, we can play such an important role by asking these questions, flagging this to the restaurants, to the businesses who are involved in the food system. And in turn, that when we start to vote with our feet by not going to those restaurants and not buying those products anymore, we start to see that these businesses and these restaurants start to change the way that they do business and which products they are bringing into their stores and their restaurants. So I would say as a consumer, we have a really important role to play. Equally so, by eating more plant-based foods, incorporating more plant-based foods into our diets. Doesn't mean you need to go necessarily entirely vegetarian or vegan due to the variety in cultural beliefs when it comes to food preferences. But that can play a monumental role in just reducing our food print, which is essentially our carbon footprint when it comes to our food and our diets. And then again, thirdly, I think from a production side, that the youth could really get involved by learning more about how to farm with nature. So what are the different practices that one can use, and also how can they grow their own food? Instead of only buying food, how can they grow food? And starting small, growing some tomatoes first and learning the different practices that could be involved, like mulching and using compost to improve soil fertility, because all of that then sequesters carbon from the atmosphere into the soil.
Thank you very much, Amy, for that response. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we'll give the chance to Esther to throw light also on that. Esther, your take.
Okay, thank you so much, John, for the question. My contribution is we are the future generation. The youths are the future generation, and if we are not going to solve these challenges in our communities, then we don't have anyone else to solve them. Most of the youths are educated, and you find that we are looking for white collar jobs while there's so many opportunities in our communities. We are moving to urban areas, leaving the old people in the rural communities to do the farming, which might affect us in the years to come. So it's a challenge upon us to look back and see what exactly is existing in our communities, and what can we do to support these farmers. We have the skills, we have the knowledge. Most of these farmers just follow the traditional ways of farming. So it's upon us to educate them, to tell them the way to go. Then on the other bit, in preparation for the UNFFS next year, we'll be holding dialogues, webinars, and other conversations to just highlight some of the actions needed. And we don't have to leave this to the secretariat and other people to come up with the actions. We can do it ourselves, because we are building this. They are building this for us. They are building the future for us. They are building strong food systems for us. So let's not keep quiet and wait for the secretariats to build these action tracks. Action point for us. We have to hear our voices and show some solidarity in this, so that we can have something which is made by us, not something which is made for us. Thank you. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Esther, for that. Yes, it is us and it depends on us to make our system work. And I think I'll put this towards the participants. I have a question for the participants, and I don't know if Samni would want to. Marie Claire, welcome back. Great to have you. Okay, so would you want to share thoughts on the question before we proceed to the participants?
Yes, can you very quickly repeat the question, because I dropped out in the middle for some time.
So we're talking about climate change and the food systems. How do we make the youth know its importance?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And sorry for my very bad connection over here. So I think very important is to connect it with yourself. I think it was already mentioned. We are eating 3 times a day, so we are naturally connected to food. There is no other way. We can, for example, say, okay, we buy less clothes. We are not flying for vacation, or we are not consuming another electrical good, but we can never say we are not going to eat. So since we're naturally connected, I think this is already an advantage for us to make it even more personal. And I think people care a lot when it comes to healthy food. If they can, of course. Sometimes, as we have already been pointing out, it's very challenging because of poverty, because of other issues. But if people can, they are very aware and they really want to have healthy food for themselves and also for their family and their kids. So I think we can strengthen the angle of, if you are eating healthy food, it's actually also healthy for the planet. And I think this is also a nice way, because every kid understands this. Healthy food, and it's healthy for the planet, it's healthy for the soil. So I think this is very important. And then I think my last point would be that when we are, as I think it was also mentioned by someone, that if you're actually growing our own food, we have a natural connection. And I think the connection is very important, because only if we have this connection, we are really going to stand up for it. And so when you grow your own food, as I've been doing myself, I'm never going to waste food, because when you see how long it takes for the food to grow, how sensible the crops are, and also when there is like a drought and the food can actually just dry out and die. When you have this connection to food and when you have this connection to the natural world, you're just naturally inclined to protect it and save it. And I think these are beautiful ways, but also, of course, it needs to be taught in the schools, so in the formal education system, but also in the non-formal education system. And I'm really glad that more and more youth movements are talking about this interrelation between food and biodiversity and the climate. But of course, we need much more. And I think we are all ambassadors. We all have the knowledge, and we have all a community we can share this with. And yeah, I think this is the most powerful. Talk over a nice dinner with your friends about the connection of food and climate. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much, Marie-Claire, for that. So I think let's have some of the participants also share in their thoughts. And the question I have for the floor is, how then do we develop the capacity of youth in agriculture to make food system resilient and robust? So this is for the participants. Sammy, would you want to have a take on that? Since you already are in the youth-led organization space, so how do we develop the capacity of youth in agriculture for a robust and resilient food system?
Hi, John. Hi, everyone. It's been very great to be part of this beautiful and intellectual webinar. I believe everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm very privileged to be here today because I have learned a lot from all the panelists with their wealth of knowledge that they've imparted in us. Thank you to everyone. Back to your question, John. Talking about impacting youth. Generally, I would want to say that just like Maria has mentioned, that we have to have a connection with the food. Either ways, the food that we eat is something that either we like it or not, we must take. But now talking about the aspect of nutrition might be a bit of a challenge. Some people might get it and they might continue to probably eat the same kind of food. Maybe for an example, some get carbohydrate and they just keep eating carbohydrate instead of having a nutritious kind of food. That can be a kind of challenge in its own part. And another could be that people do not even know how to go about getting the nutritious food in the first place. We have some intellect among the youth who knows their onions about all these things, who can bring this to the limelight. Talking about capacity building, I think some of these youths can be brought or fished out so that we can have several of these webinars staged for local organizations, staged for local communities, staged for even health communities or health organizations, and some little outlets like a market places where the less privileged are always found. We can mention associations like that of drivers. We have associations like that of organizers. We have some of these people have associations generally. I believe that we can take the gospel to this list people that might, for an example, we might talk about them not being educated about how to get nutritious food in the first place. So I think the gospel from the youth, especially the ones who are very, very much knowledgeable, they can take the gospel out to reaching and impacting their knowledge into the people who are in the remote areas. And also, I would like to also mention that as an individual, either youth or no youth, I think it will be a very beautiful thing for us to cultivate a habit of having, no matter how little or how small, to have a local garden at the backyard of our house. I think Mary mentioned something like that she grows her own kind of food that she eats. Having a local garden, I'm not talking about commercial this time around, just talking about a small local garden that you have at the backyard of your house, where you can easily pick up some few vegetables, you can pick up some few things. I think it's gonna go a very, very beautiful long way in encouraging several people by getting some kind of food that can be handy, things you can get at the backyard of your house. And this, in a way, will also help cultivate the habit of the green area, because either ways, you'll be generating some green energy into the atmosphere, which will also help us in combating the climate change that we are advocating for. And also, it will also encourage an healthy environment in a way on its own. Because if you are growing a local garden, if you're growing some local foods like tomatoes, like pepper, like some other vegetables, it could even be carrots, it could be watermelon, it could be any kind of fruit. If you are growing those things at the backyard of your house, you will also appreciate the fact that you will need to fertilize the land or the soil in which you want to grow it. And this, in a way, we also encourage the form of biodiversity, the animals that grow on the land, the ones that are inside the soil, all of these things are interconnected in a way. And I believe that generally we'll be helping the world in our own little way. It might be very minute, but if everybody can cultivate a habit of this sort, I think that we can bring all this to beautiful limelight. It might not necessarily be all big. It might not necessarily be all in the commercial, like you have to have the aspect of growing it in a commercial quantity. But I believe that if we can have everyone in our own little environment in where we belong, if we have our own habit of cultivating, no matter how small, it will generate something very great to the entire fight for the cause of climate change.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that loaded remarks in relation to the question. So I think Madam Harriet, she is also here, and maybe we can have her take on that. Madam Harriet, if you are there, what is your take on that question?
Hi, everyone. Thank you once again for the opportunity to participate in this meeting. I'll actually say that for us to promote agriculture, we have to start from the bottom line. The bottom line in the sense that we have to start from our homes and then probably from the schools. I'm saying this because back home when I was in Ghana during like the 2000s, I could hardly see a practical version of agriculture in my school. Agriculture was part of the school's curriculum, but we never did the practical session of it. It was always a theoretical part of agriculture, like learning of the books and imagining yourself planting something in your head in the backyard garden and all that, knowing the tools of head, but not even seeing them physically. So I think that in order to promote this among the youth, there should be a practical session of this in the schools. For instance, we had something called what's the name? Practical something, home economics and all that. And you could see that we came to school with pots to come and cook and learn how to cut vegetables and all that. So that was a very interesting thing. So I think agriculture should also be in that direction, where students will be asked to do some planting on their school's garden or backyard garden in the homes and all that. And I think through that, it will increase the interest of the students to at least come up with that. And frankly speaking, I haven't actually seen anybody in the city who is really into agriculture compared to someone in either the countryside or the villages. So most people in the city thinks maybe agriculture is something related to the rural areas, and it's something very difficult to do, and it's challenging, and probably there's no profit from it. But frankly speaking, agriculture is what makes us who we are, because we get nutritious fruits from there, and everything, all the nutrients from there is what makes us who we are today. So I think it should be from the grassroots, especially from the educational curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Harriet. And I sincerely concur, yes, that if we start this capacity building right from the grassroots, right from the tender age, these young minds will grow up loving agriculture, because most often than not, when you ask these young minds in school, what do you want to become in future? All they mention is, I want to be a pilot, a doctor, a teacher. Hardly in a classroom would you hear a student saying, I want to be an agriculturist or an extension officer or a veterinary officer, or even I want to be an agribusiness specialist. So I think the issue also has to border on the surrounding, that is we, the parents, because we put too much expectation on high-earning jobs to these young minds that they are even afraid to boldly express their interest in such a lucrative, I would say agriculture is worthier than gold. And anyone here can debate with me on that score. So can we have one more, any of the participants to also share their thoughts on this before we move to Oluwatonsi on the youth capacity building? Any of the Rachel, what do you want to give a thoughts on that? Or Elisha, would you want to share? Maxwell, would you also want to share your thoughts on that? Okay, we have Mary Ann, whose hand is up. Okay, Mary Ann, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Please, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Marianne Tandongo from Ghana, and I have a nutrition background. My contribution is basically about the entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who set out to start a business, but then they get discouraged along the line because of the situation about getting a market. And then you find them competing with foods that are imported into the country. So such young people get discouraged, and they kind of feel like it's not worth it if they have to compete, and then end up selling their products at a very low price because there's a lot coming in from elsewhere. So it would help if there's a space created for young people who are starting businesses in agriculture. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Me saying that there should be a space created for these young minds to express their interest in agriculture, and also by doing so, we're able to make food systems resilient, because it moves from what the young minds into the rural, to the communities, as well as urban and the cities. So Oluwatonsi, would you want to come in before we bring in other speakers? So your thoughts, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, John. Basically, speaking about capacity building for the young minds in agriculture, let's look at it from this angle. We're all familiar with food. It's the basic necessity of life for any human, animal, for any living thing on earth. Okay, so we are used to it. And in that case, we tend not to really see the importance, the need. It's like a common thing around. So you don't take cognizance of what you have to do and why you have to do it. Like the other panelist was talking about, where was the food grown? How is it grown? And sort likes of questions. So for me, basically, in the schools, for me, I've worked with teenagers, I've worked with younger folks for 5 years now, and I've understood the way their mind works and the way they see things. So basically, if you want to connect with these young minds, for us to be able to change the scope in which we are looking at food system, we should be able to integrate these young minds into the processes and also what comes about it. More or less like when you introduce the kids to sports or you introduce them to activities. That's the same way also we can also inculcate learning on agriculture to the youths by having a sort of agricultural club for the youth where they can learn different skill of practice in agriculture. And you can have a form of competition either within the formal setting or in the informal setting in the community. Or you can have trainings like you can have someone come over to talk to the kids about the food they eat, how it's grown, and show them how gardens and in fact you can go thus far to have kids interact with trees, flowers, birds, and everything in their community. It's fascinating to them just by the act of that amazing look on their faces. You will be able to pass a message across. It's more like an eye opener, so that they can begin to appreciate their environment and see ways in which they can work with nature, and also to be able to protect the environment. It goes beyond, most often than not, we are too conscious of teaching the kids about health and hygiene. We are too much interested in telling them about career and the likes. But then we pay little kids about why is it important that you eat this food? Or why do you eat this food? Where is the food grown from? Some kids, you can be shocked that some kids don't even know where their fruits come from. Some think they come from the ground, some think they fell from above, and on the like. So if the kids are being trained in smaller circles like this, in terms of either clubs in schools or excursions or trainings, introductions like having an exhibition, like songs and having spelling bees, yeah, can also go a long way. It's supposed to be a systemic thing, so that at the end of the day, when the kids appreciate things in that form, then as they grow along, it becomes part of them. This knowledge don't go away because each kid wants to experiment everything that is being learned today. They want to experiment it, and it stays with them over the years. So before you know it, you would have a crop of kids that have been exposed to the ecosystem, that have been exposed to agriculture. And by and large, even if they don't pick up agri as a core career, they would have interest in raising gardens, in cultivating flowers, in keeping animals, pets, and the likes. That will go a long way in increasing their capacity to be able to understand things in this light. So really, for us to attain that, we need to be able to communicate effectively with these kids, either through the psychological influences or through the peer group influences, or you can have more or less like an open atmosphere where the kid can reason their thoughts out and there can be an explanation with quizzes or with songs just to water it down and make it more acceptable and more friendly for the kids to accept it. So if we're able to do that, then in the next 10, 15 years, you would see the amount of change that would come into the space. Because once the kid grows with that knowledge, and then every other knowledge that has to come across in that line would be picked up by and large. And before you know it, everyone will be interested in the food they grow, in the food they eat, sorry. And that's where we are going to. As soon as everybody is interested in the food they eat, then people will start picking interest in how is this food grown? What's the nutritional component? I had a component of legume to my carbohydrate as breakfast or as lunch. Is there a need for me to take an egg? You know, all of those things, all of those questions keep coming up. That's how kids think, and that's how kids grow. So if we can be able to capture them at that younger stage, then I believe we'll be able to accomplish this feat of having a sustainable food system and a resilient community in a short while.
Thank you very much for that score. I think we spent a lot of time, so we will round it off with a final round of questions from and take from the panelists. Let's give this one to Mary Claire. So Mary Claire, can you tell us, the youth people, what exactly is the Yungo, what they do? That is the first question. And the next question is, what is your final take? Practical, innovative solutions, and on today's World Food Day, making food systems resilient and robust. And this is a general question to all the panelists. So, Mary Claire, I think you can have this last slot, and then we'll call it a day.
Thank you so much, John, and everyone who contributed. So very quickly on Yango. Yango is the official youth constituency to the UNFCCC. So basically, it's the space at the UN for climate change where young people are gathering, preparing, where they're coordinating. So we are an official constituency. This means that we are invited for different expert meetings. So we can send young people to the international meetings and literally having a seat in the negotiations, which is a great opportunity for young people. Everyone can be part of Yango. You only have to be below 35 years. I can also send the sign up form. So you can simply sign up and then we will add you to the mailing list, and then you can join different working groups, you can join different committees and engage in a topic you like. So this is really open for everyone. There is no fee, nothing. Of course, this year we don't have a COP, so it's a little bit challenging, but normally there young people at the conference of the parties. And then when we are, and then we can gather and we can prepare statements and join the negotiations. So this is a great place to be when you want to be engaged in the climate movement and want to be up to date. And so my take from the session today is that there are already so many awesome solutions out there. And I think it's very important to not, because we just simply don't have the time to rethink everything. We have to build on what we already have, strengthen the people and the solutions you already have, especially the young people, but also the research and everything what you already mentioned, and take it from there and build relations and have this network effect. So basically when people know about each other, they can connect, and then we can increase our work much faster, because what we need is scaling up and bringing in more urgency. And I think exactly this can be done also. Then I truly hope that we can touch on networking with each other and across countries, across regions, ethnics, religions, and everything, because yeah, we are in different crises and we can only solve if we work all together. And I have to leave, unfortunately, like in 2 minutes, but I'm very, very grateful to be here. And thank you so much, John, and everyone who contributed, and also the participants.
Thank you very much, Marie Claire, for your insightful contribution and for your time. We wish you all the best, and we wish you a happy World Food Day as well. Thank you. All right, so let's move to Dr. Khalid, your final remarks, and if you would want to share with a global community organization and how people could also look forward to collaborations on projects and all that stuff. And also your final take on the World Food Day, robust and resilient food systems. Your final take on that.
So my final take is about combining technical and social solutions. Please ensure that you can, at the same time, grow your own plants, grow your own fruits, vegetables. But from my point of view, that will be not enough to feed the world. Because in the best case, what you can, if you have a garden, you can do that. In most of the cities, combining with urbanization, surely we can think about urban farming, but urban farming is at the same time a good thing to do, but it will be not enough. My final take on that is let's use our whole intelligence as humans at all to combine social and technical solutions that we can ensure the food system and to make it more robust and resilient. Having a garden is nice to have, but if you're living in a huge mega city like Tokyo, Tokyo will not be able to have a garden for everybody. But as I mentioned, is it a good solution? Yes, it is, but not for the whole world. Let's try to be intelligent. Let's try to make this production, processing, distribution, and consumption of food in a more efficient and better way, that we don't waste too much and that we use our agriculture in the best way we can do. And finally, let's help all us together to be more smart if we have the ability to educate us. And education, we didn't mention it in the talk anyway, but I think education is a key point in all those problems we do have as a solution.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hallett, for your final take on that scope. So, Madam Esther, if you'd want to come in with your final remarks, what you do, and also Energy for Mentor, if you can also talk about it, and a little bit of the UNFSS. Yes, please.
Thank you so much, John. First, I would like to talk about UNFFS. So we have a group for the African region where youths can share, contribute, and engage with other youths from all over Africa. I'm going to share the link if you want to join. So I'm a renewable energy professional. I work for Energy for Impact, and I've been involved in several projects in sub-Saharan Africa. One of the main projects which I really like and the work I did is I worked with the women entrepreneurs in Kenya, in rural parts of Kenya, building their capacity in making and production of clean energy products such as cook stoves, briquettes, and also introducing them to the market. These are the small startups in the rural areas. So we are trying to introduce them to the outside world, not only to stay in their community, but to know what's happening in the world, to grow their businesses, to know how to engage with other stakeholders in the energy sector, and also to know what energy means, because most of these women were doing these businesses just for the sake of the profits. They never knew they are doing a great deal in the energy sector. So that's one of the projects which I did part of last year. And also there is another project which involved solar installations in the vulnerable communities, that there are the 5 counties in Kenya, which involved installing solar panel for schools, rural schools and dispensaries for them to be able to access power. These are the off-grid schools and dispensaries. My final take on the World Food Day is there exists a good linkage between all the SDGs, and more specifically the water, energy, and food sector. So it's upon us, the youths, the expert in these sectors, to look at the technologies we are using. Are they building on our food systems or are they destroying? We need to look at some of the technologies we are using in production, in processing. What are they doing to our climate? Is there anything? We need to look at it from all angles. Are we using efficient technologies or are we destroying one sector while we are building the other? So like the use of the cold chains for the post-harvest, to reduce post-harvest loss. These are great technology which can help most people in the rural areas through use of mini-grids to create cold chain technologies to help people reduce post-harvest loss, and also use of solar irrigation systems to reduce use of diesel and other fossil fuels in the irrigation of, in the agricultural field. We also need to we need to utilize solar in our systems, in our processes, that is the food systems. Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with the fellow youth. And I urge you all, let's come together and work together. Thank you so much. I'll share the link.
Thank you very much, Esther, for your closing remarks. So, Emmy, over to you. How does one also become a climate reality leader? And also in your own score of food systems and climate change, what can people do? And also, how do they collaborate with you? And lastly, on the how do we make our system more robust and resilient? Thank you. Your closing remarks.
Sure, thanks, John, and thanks everyone for having me with you today. So I think on the first question, in terms of being a trained climate reality leader, this year we had 2 online global trainings for people to become trained climate reality leaders. Usually these trainings do take place in person. So this year we have seen a particular opportunity with things being done virtually and digitally to have these trainings online, which made them more accessible. And we really were able to then expand our network right across Africa. So for the time being, we don't have any more trainings coming up this year. We may be looking into it next year to host a regional training. And if this is something that does interest you or people within your network, please do follow us on our website as well as our social media platforms where we will be placing this information. So I will share that in a few moments, the link to our website. And then I think just to speak about the African Climate Reality Project, thank you, John, for sharing the slide. So we have a number of campaigns and projects that we run. Some of them really speak to engaging with the African Development Bank, for instance, around taking their finance or publicly committing to reducing finance in fossil fuels. And then the second one is the Cinca CO2 campaign. And this is really focused on our nature-based solutions, looking at Africa's forests and their important role in adapting to and mitigating the climate crisis. And so this slide here is really about how you can take action in Africa to help us save Africa's forests. So one of those would be to sign our petition, and this is to prevent oil exploration in the Congo Basin peatlands, which is incredibly important because if those are drilled into, a huge amount of carbon will be released into the atmosphere. We also have fact sheets where you can learn more about Africa's forests. And then just to highlight that, the Cinca CO2 campaign is really important because, like I mentioned earlier, soil is another really incredible and important carbon sink. And so this will be an area that we will be moving into next, and where we will be having resources as well as days of actions where you can get involved. So by following us on our website as well as our social media platforms, you'll be able to access these digital toolkits, which give you, everything from tweets that you can then post on your social media platforms to different ways that you can take action, whether it's in terms of African forests or the African Development Bank or plastics. And then I think just to round off, in terms of creating a more robust food system, I think if we go back to many of the points that are being made today, is that each and every single one of us has a role to play, and particularly the youth. So my bit of advice here is absolutely education is important. We need to be spreading the message as much as possible, and capacity building is part and parcel of that, whether it's with youth, whether it's with farmers, whether it's with our friends. But my key message would be to start where you are. Think globally, but act locally. Whether that's producing your first vegetable, or learning how to create your own food garden, whether that's just going to volunteer at a food garden in your own community, or helping local farmers. So it really is starting where you are. And I think in Africa's context, we are particularly lucky because we may not necessarily have advanced our development in many of our cities as many other parts of the world have. And so we have an opportunity to also leapfrog into some of these more sustainable development pathways, and to use sustainable agricultural systems within our urban centers. Thank you, John, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amy, for that well-detailed information about the African climate reality. Thank you very much. So, Madam Diane, your final remarks on that score also, and also if you can talk about the Why SDG organization. Madam Diane,
Okay.
your final remarks.
Okay, so with YSDGs, what we do is we try to bridge the gap between the individual and the SDG goals. So what we do is we have a platform that allows you to report problems and submit solutions. And what happens is that we want everyone to partake in achieving the SDGs. We want everyone to personalize the SDGs. So what we do is, by using this platform, we encourage people to partake in finding solutions, finding problems in their various localities. We deal with localities. So we are looking at, okay, so with your locality, probably there's a sewage problem. And so you can go on the platform and report that, and we share with our community. So how you can reach us is you just follow us on our social media handles. Is YSDGs across all platforms, and you can get through to us. So my final take on the robust food systems, I would say that we really need to take part in achieving the goals. We need to be action-oriented. So at the end of the day, we need to personalize. I always say this, we need to personalize. We need to personalize the goals. We need to strive for a sustainable food system, and we need to strive for a circular economy. I think Doctor was mentioning something about that. It's very important that all this that we are doing, we are trying to strive for that circular economy. And it's very important that we try as much as possible to achieve this. And so my final words will be that we already have the science. We already have the frameworks and the policies. So what we have to do now is to focus on the solutions and the people, because I feel like at the end of the day, it's the habits of the people that will propel us to a certain point. Even though we might be thinking of organizations, we might be thinking of the bigger picture, it really starts from us. And the action that we want to be taking basically starts from us. So we need to be action oriented. Thank you so much for having me, and it's been a pleasure being on this platform.
We need to focus on the solution and the people. The final words of Madame Diane, which has really sunk in. So on that score, I want to thank everyone who has made it possible here. I want to acknowledge every participant who has been here for the 2-hour session. Please, if you've not signed up for your certificate, please do in the chat box. The link is there, register, and you will have your certificate. We want to thank you all for making it. Eunice, Maxwell, Rachel, Ruth, Samuel, all of you who've made it possible here. We appreciate your time. Food is the essence of life and the bedrock of our cultures and communities. So preserving to access safe and nutritious food is and should continue to be an essential and integral part of response, especially in this COVID-19 pandemic. And most critically, the poor and the rural communities who are the hardest hit by this pandemic has also resulted in what? An economic shock. But we say on this World Food Day, which marks also the 75th anniversary of FAO, in a very exceptional moment as countries around the world deal with the widespread effects of the global COVID-19 pandemic, it's time to look into the future for us to build back better. So I acknowledge all of you who made it possible here, and also we share in everything that you do. We want to thank you very much for having been here for us. And we are really appreciative of especially the collaborating agencies who have been here. I want to acknowledge UNEP Youth Focus Group for UN Food Systems, and the United Nations Youth Association Ghana, the African Climate Reality Project, UN 75, that is a UN 2020 and beyond, and the Sustainable Development Goals. All these has been made possible in support of the FAO at 70 with the global theme, Grow, Nourish, Sustain Together. So without, because no action can aspire us to be transformative, that is why all these organizations have come together. And also from a collaborative organization, Friends for Leadership, who have played a very integral role, and also being ably represented by Dr. Haley in the theme, making food systems more resilient and robust. So our objective had been to sensitize the public and everyone as to the role to play in transforming our food systems by changing the way we produce, transform, consume, and even how we waste our food. And also today has brought to bear through Dr. Halley's submission on digital innovation, digital agriculture, and Amy and Diane's say on what? Greater partnership with more focus on people and climate action, with collaboration in transforming food systems to produce and provide enough food and also nutritious for a growing population, as remarked by our panelist Oluwatosin. We thank you all, and we also look forward as engaging on thematic issues of the Sustainable Development Goals, such as climate crisis, youth biodiversity, food security, no hunger, and critically, responsible consumptions. So I want to thank you all for making today a possibility. We wish you all a happy World Food Day. Thank you, and bye-bye.